In this episode of The Hike, we're going to talk about the Thomas Lake, Blue Lake, and Clear Lake Loop. You would see this small animation that I made and the path that I took, starting from Thomas Lake to Blue Lake, Clear Lake, and past the Clear Lake, there's the Bear, and that's about the major ones that I see on this map there. But in all, this whole Indian Heaven Wilderness is about over 20,000 acres of forest land and over 150 lakes along the way, and large and small, and innumerable number of unnamed ponds dot the entire 20,000 plus acres landscape. This hike was on a very clear day, as you can see, and we started in the Thomas Lake. That's the first one, and what you see there is the Thomas Lake. The day was a very clear day, hardly any wind, and not many people. The notorious mosquitoes were not to be seen, and it made for an extremely pleasant hiking experience. Pretty much every one of the lake back there in the Indian wilderness, Indian Heavens Wilderness, the water was very clear and clean. Although running water sources were pretty much dry at this time of the year, but the water itself was good to be filtered and probably heated, filtered, and then consumed. This one is the Neha Lake, a mid-sized lake, as you can see there along the way, but every one of them, they were so pretty. In addition to these beautiful lakes, this time of the year, that's in October, fall, the colors were popping left, right, and center throughout the entire trail that I hiked. The flaming red color leaves that you see there are the huckleberry leaves, and huckleberries were in the last lap, and they were almost falling off the bushes, and they were everywhere, particularly on the eastern flank of the slope. They were everywhere, and I helped myself to handfuls along the way. The riotous colors were a visual treat for the eyes. A grand mix of orange, red, yellow, and green made it for a spectacular visual experience. The trail was rutted in a lot of places along the way due to running water or from the snow melt, but nothing too difficult to navigate. It was pretty easy navigating this entire trail. There was an occasional fallen log that you have to either crawl under or climb over. Nothing very difficult, but overall the trail itself was pretty well maintained throughout the entire 14-mile round trip. There were not many people. Most of the people that I passed were campers who were camping either at Blue Lake or the Clear Lake, but other than that, I hardly saw anybody on the trail. Wow, that picture is so beautiful. That's a no-name pond. Thought I'll take a picture of that pond because it looks so pretty, especially with the trees in the backdrop and those colors along the side, and the small water body made it a great spot for me to rest for a while and then continue on the hike. That's the very popular Blue Lake. Most of the people start from Thomas Lake and end up at the Blue Lake or camp at the Blue Lake, and this is a fairly big sized lake. As you can see there, the water is very, very clear, and I saw several fish jumping out of the water. And I've read subsequently that most of these lakes in the Indian Heavens is very well stocked with trout. And I've seen a few people carrying fish poles. And this happens to be a popular camping. There are a few designated camping spots, likewise at Clear Lake, as well as Bear Lake and Elk Lake. But on this route, I did not cover the Elk Lake, which will be covered in the next episode of the Indian Heavens hike. Well, another parting look at Blue Lake. This is where I also decided to have my lunch. There were plenty of fall mushrooms, and I'm not a mushroom expert, but there were many giant-sized mushrooms back there. And there were a few people who were familiar with with these mushrooms, were able to pick them up, and probably they were going to eat it, it looks like. The chanterelles, the truffles, and many more of these exotic mushrooms were just about everywhere. If hiking around lakes is your interest, then the Indian Heavens is the go-to place. There were almost countless number of them, and according to the US Forest Service, there are over 150 small and large lakes. Along this trail, I found clear evidence of wildlife. There were deer dropping. There was definitely either a bobcat or a cougar dropping that were on the trail. And among the wildlife, and there are probably others as well. The black bear is known to exist in these forest land. That's Junction Lake, another of those big lakes. And I'd seen a few people even camp around this lake. Now we are almost back close. We're getting closer to the on the return path. That's Bear Lake. That's another beautiful lake. Look, the clarity of the water is incredible. It was a quiet day, very few people, and for miles on end, I was pretty much on my own. And as you can see, I did not see anyone on this lake on this day. That's Deer Lake, and I was so tired by the time I got to this point that I decided to just take a picture from up at the top and then move on. And overall, that is a great hike, highly recommended.